Good morning, and welcome to AI Daily for Monday, July 20th, 2026. Here is your top story. In the space of about 72 hours, China has put two of the largest AI models on Earth into the world, and one of them has already overwhelmed the company that built it. Moonshot AI announced it is suspending new subscriptions to Kimi K3, saying demand over the past 48 hours had pushed it close to the limits of its capacity. Then on Sunday, July 19th, Alibaba's Qwen team unveiled Qwen 3.8, 2.4 trillion parameters, and a claim that it is second in the world only to Fable 5. Remarkably, there is not a single published benchmark to back that claim up. All of this lands on a chip market that is already bleeding. The Philadelphia Semiconductor Index has fallen close to 10% in 5 sessions, and SK Hynix is down more than 15% over the same stretch. In a few hours, Asian markets opened for the first time since Qwen 3.8 became public. Everything in this episode is checked against primary sources, and as always, we deal in facts and analysis, never investment advice. Let's start with Qwen 3.8, because it is the genuinely new thing in the last 24 hours. On July 19th, Alibaba's Qwen team announced the model with a short statement. Their words, "With a massive 2.4 trillion parameters, this model is continuously evolving. We believe it is one of the most powerful models available today, comparable to leading frontier AI models, second only to Fable 5. 2.4 trillion parameters makes this the second largest publicly known model in the world, behind only Moonshot's Kimi K3 at 2.8 trillion. Both of those numbers were announced in the same week by two Chinese labs, which is not a coincidence anyone in Silicon Valley is enjoying this morning. Right now, Qwen 3.8 is available as a preview, branded Qwen 3.8 Max Preview, through Alibaba's token plan subscription and through its coding products Coder and CoderWork. The subscription tiers reported are a $6 Lite plan with 2,500 credits a week and a $68 Pro plan with 40,000 credits a week supporting 6 to 8 concurrent agents. The API is compatible with both OpenAI and Anthropic protocols, which tells you exactly who Alibaba wants developers to switch away from. Now here is the part we have to be careful about, and it is the most interesting part. Alibaba published a ranking claim without publishing the evidence. As of this morning, there is not one single released Qwen 3.8 benchmark score. No GPQA number, no SWE bench number, no terminal benchmark number. Every figure currently circulating online under the Qwen 3.8 headline actually belongs to its predecessor, Qwen 3.7 Max, which scored 92.4% on GPQA Diamond and 80.4% on SWE Bench Verified. Alibaba has also not disclosed the active parameter count or the mixture of experts configuration, and it has not stated a context window. So the claim that this is the world's second best model rests entirely on the company's own internal evaluations. We are reporting the claim. We are not endorsing it, and neither should you until third-party numbers land. There is one more open question worth flagging. Alibaba says open weights are coming soon, with no date and no license announced, and no model card published yet. If that actually happens, it would break Alibaba's own pattern of keeping its max-tier models closed, and it would put a 2.4 trillion parameter open model into the world barely a week after Kimi K3 did the same thing. That is the thing to watch. To the companies, and to what may be the most telling story of the weekend. Moonshot AI, the maker of Kimi K3, has stopped taking new customers. In a post on its official account, the Kimi team wrote that K3 has received far more love than expected and that their GPUs are feeling it. Over the past 48 hours, they said, demand has pushed close to the limits of current capacity. So to protect the experience of existing subscribers, they are temporarily pausing new subscriptions and prioritizing compute for current members. Existing subscribers are unaffected. The company says it is adding capacity as fast as it can and will reopen new subscription slots in batches. It also announced it will split its membership into two more focused plans going forward, a Kimi membership covering web, app, and work, and a separate Kimi Code membership for coding workflows. Think about what that sentence actually means. A lab released a model so well received that it had to stop accepting money. Developer reaction has been mixed in an instructive way. Many praised the transparency, contrasting it favorably with competitors who quietly reduce limits without telling anyone. But others reported real degradation. One user described waiting 12 minutes for a simple code review that a rival tool finished in 3, and several complained that the entry-level coding plan burns through quota within days. Moonshot's published coding tiers run from $19 at the starter level up to $219 at the top. The lesson here is not about one company. Frontier quality weights are now cheap to release and brutally expensive to serve, and serving is where the real moat has moved. That same capacity squeeze is showing up on the American side, just less honestly. Over the weekend, developers surfaced a merged pull request in OpenAI's Codex repository, backporting refreshed model metadata, which cut the model context size from 372,000 tokens down to 272,000. That pull request was merged on July 18th. It is the second such cut users have caught. A GitHub issue filed on July 13th, titled as a severe regression, documented the context for GPT 5.6 SOL dropping from 353,000 to 258,000 tokens against an advertised 1.05 million. The practical effect is that Codex now caps the raw window at 272,000, so a paying user cannot opt into the long context tier they read about on the pricing page. OpenAI has framed the underlying work as efficiency changes to GPT 5.6 SOL, and it has temporarily lifted the 5-hour usage limit for Codex and ChatGPT work users on Plus, Business, and Pro plans while those changes roll out. For context on why, Codex went from roughly 1 million active users in February to 8 million by July. That is the fastest scaling problem in the industry, and the context window is where the bill is being quietly paid. Related, and honestly a little absurd, a blog post that circulated widely this weekend asked what the deal is with all the random weekly quota resets for coding agents lately. The author, Max Wolf, documented that OpenAI directly reset the Codex weekly quota 6 times in the space of 2 weeks in mid-July, on the 9th, twice on the 10th, then the 14th, 15th, and 17th. On top of that, OpenAI ran a banked reset system on the 12th and 13th that users could manually trigger within 30 days. His argument is that these resets function as retention tools. After 2 major model releases in July, a user who runs out of quota is a user who might go try a competitor, and a surprise reset keeps them home. The phenomenon is now large enough that someone built a website purely to track it. That site logs 35 resets to date, an average of 8.9 days between them, and a longest dry spell of 68 days, all scraped from a single OpenAI engineer's social media feed. Its tagline calls itself the most important tweet tracker in software. It is a joke, but it is also a fair description of how developers currently find out what they are actually paying for. One quieter engineering story for the builders listening. Simon Willison published an analysis on July 19th showing that Anthropic's Claude Code has been shipping on a Rust-based build of the Bun runtime since version 2.1.181, released June 17th. He verified it by running strings against the shipped binary, which surfaced Bun version 1.4.0, a preview build ahead of its public release, along with 563 Rust source file names embedded in the executable. Bun's creator, Jared Sumner, described the result this way. Startup got 10% faster on Linux, but otherwise, barely anyone noticed. Boring is good. There is a real point in there. A major runtime rewrite went into production across millions of devices, and the headline benefit was 10% on cold start, with 0 user-visible breakage. In a week full of trillion parameter announcements, that is a useful reminder that most of the value in this industry still gets shipped without a press release. On policy, The story that dominated community discussion this weekend was not about frontier labs at all. It was about apartment photos. New York City Mayor Zoran Mamdani released what his office calls the Rental Ripoff Report, a package of 23 policy actions aimed at deceptive landlord practices. One of them would require landlords, brokers, and listing platforms to provide clear and conspicuous disclosure whenever AI-generated or digitally altered images and video are used in a rental listing. The practice has already picked up a nickname: house phishing. The concrete complaint is that generative tools are being used to smooth over cracked ceilings, erase water damage, and light windowless rooms with sunshine that does not exist, in a market where renters make expensive decisions fast and unlimited information. Enforcement would fall to the city's Department of Consumer and Worker Protection, which would write the actual rules and work with platforms including StreetEasy and Zillow. The report was shaped by testimony from more than 2,400 New Yorkers at hearings held across the 5 boroughs between February and April, and the reforms are expected to phase in over 3 years. Know what kind of regulation this is. It is not about model capabilities or existential risk. It is a consumer protection rule about a specific commercial deception, enforced by a consumer protection agency. That is likely to be the shape of most AI regulation that actually reaches people. To the markets, and a note on timing. U.S. markets were closed over the weekend, so the numbers I am about to give you are Friday, July 17th close. What matters is that this is the board Asia is about to open against, with Qwen 3.8 now public. The damage is concentrated exactly where you would expect. The Philadelphia Semiconductor Index closed Friday at 11,674, down 1.6% on the day and down almost 10% across 5 sessions. NVIDIA closed at $202.81, down 2.2% on the day. Micron fell 13.3% over 5 sessions. AMD lost 11.1%. ARM dropped 17.4%, and CoreWeave 17.6% over the same week. In Asia, the picture is worse. SK Hynix is down 15.7% over 5 sessions. Samsung Electronics fell 8.8% in a single session. TSMC's Taipei listing lost 7.3% on Friday, and SoftBank dropped 9%. Meanwhile, the broad market barely moved. The S&P 500 was off 1% on Friday and only 1.6% across the week. So this is not a general risk-off. It is a repricing aimed specifically at companies whose earnings depend on frontier training runs staying expensive. The market's working hypothesis right now is that near-frontier capability is getting cheap, and cheap capability needs fewer of the most expensive chips. That is the hypothesis being tested. We are not going to tell you whether it is right, and we are certainly not going to tell you what to do about it. So what are we watching from here? First, the Asian Open. Tokyo, Seoul, and Taipei trade in a few hours, and they will be the first markets anywhere to price in Qwen 3.8. Watch the memory names, in particular, SK Hynix and Samsung, since they have been the sharpest movers of the last 2 weeks. Second, benchmarks. Qwen 3.8 second. Only to Fable. 5 claim is currently unverifiable, and independent evaluations from the usual community leaderboards are the single most important thing that could land this week. If the number comes in strong, the chip sell-off has further to think about. If it comes in soft, this becomes a marketing story. Third, the openweights question. Alibaba said soon. Soon has no date, no license, and no model card. Watch for a hugging face listing. Fourth, whether Moonshot reopens Kimi K3 subscriptions and on what terms, because that is the clearest public signal we will get about how hard it actually is to serve a 2.8 trillion parameter model at consumer prices. And fifth, whether OpenAI says anything on the record about the Codex context reduction, which so far has been communicated entirely through a merged pull request. That is your briefing for Monday, July 20th. 2 Chinese labs shipped the 2 largest models in the world inside a single week. One of them had to stop selling subscriptions because it could not serve the demand, and the American incumbents are quietly trimming context windows to pay the same bill. Every source used in this episode is linked in the description. This briefing is AI-generated. It contains facts and analysis only, and it is not investment advice. We are back tomorrow morning, same time. Thanks for listening.